Welcome to a brand new season of Think Governance. In this series, we unpack King 5, a bold new standard for ethical leadership, accountability, and sustainable value creation in South Africa. Join us as we explore what this means for directors, business leaders, and governance professionals shaping the future.
So today I have the absolute pleasure of sitting with someone who I don't think needs an introduction, but for the purposes of this video, let me introduce you to Mervyn King. He was the founding chair of the King Committee from 1992 at its inception through to 2018. And Mervyn is now an honorary member of the King Committee. Mervyn, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Parmi.
So Mervyn, looking back at this journey that began with the formation of the King Committee in 1992, to the release of King 1 in 1994, just over 3 decades ago. What does this launch of King 5 today represent to you personally?
Well, in 1992, when I was telephoned by the then CEO of the IoDSA and asked me if I would be prepared to chair a committee and form a committee to write a conduct code for directors of companies in the new South Africa. Because the IOD realized that we were moving from a country of unequal opportunity to one of equal opportunity. And fellow citizens who had not been in the corporate world are now going to come into the corporate world. And Adrian Cadbury, Sir Adrian Cadbury of Cadbury chocolate fame, had in 1989 written the first code of governance in the world, but it was focused on the financial aspects of governance because of the dictate of the primacy of the shareholder. And I said, I'd think about this because at the time I was very busy. I was the chairman of 2 huge companies listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And I was chairing also Operation Hunger, which was taking a lot of my time. And I said, let me think about that. And as a matter of serendipity, that afternoon, Mr. Mandela phoned me to talk to me about something. And I told him of this idea of the IOD, and he said, do it. You're the right man. Just make sure nobody charges for what they do. And so I formed a committee which was reflective of what was known as our new Rainbow Nation. For example, Richard Maponya, and I'll never forget, Richard came to have dinner with me at my house, and I still got an old 19th century dining room suite, and it's a bit delicate, and Richard, as you know, is quite a big man, and we said something funny, we told a joke at the table, and he leant back like this in the back of the chair. So it was a committee of people who got together, and there was Ibrahim Patel, who was a member of the Labour Union. So we were disparate, and but I was very mindful that if we came out with the primacy of the shareholder model, it would be rejected, to use Pollinger's recent language. It would be seen as white monopolistic capital. And so I wittingly steered the committee away from what they'd learnt, what the practice was. And we came out with a new model of making decisions which are in the long-term best interest of the health of the company, but understanding and knowing the needs, interests, and expectations of the stakeholder groupings pertinent to the business of the company. So you took all that into account in making your business judgment calls, the board as a collective. And that started to go around the world because it was some new thinking. And it wasn't driven by any genius on my part. It was driven by the circumstances in South Africa at the time. That we had to come out with something novel, something that wasn't, as Adrian Cadbury said, he was restricted by the idea that the directors owed their duty to the shareholders, and there was the primacy. So we had to come out with something new, and we did. And when we launched King 3, Sir Adrian Cadbury actually came out here to launch it.
Yeah, I remember.
And he said publicly, and it was in the Financial Times of London, that the leading for the leader of corporate governance in the world is the King Committee. So that was when King 3 was launched. And so Parmi King, the first report, I virtually wrote every word of it, except for an annex we had to the report on ethics, and that was chaired by Peter Wrighton. But I wrote every word, and please remember, it was a labour of love. And you can imagine writing a King report. So the report came up, and it assumed my name as Chair, King Report. And but it was a labour which I realised when it came to the next report. But that's another issue.
But what a legacy you leave with those comments of South Africa's code being world-renowned, right?
Yes, it's a fantastic legacy, but of course it's not me, myself. But I, at the time, so in 94, we issued the first report, which assumed my name, the King Report. At that time, I also became chairman of the United Nations in governance and oversight. And some senators from America and local people in Europe, particularly in Amsterdam, launched an initiative to give guidance as to how do you report 80% of the market cap value of companies, because only 20% of market cap research showed was being seen in the financial statements. So how do you report on the rest? And this initiative started drawing guidelines and became known as the Global Reporting Initiative. I've asked many times, even when I was chair, I suggested we should change the name because it's no longer an initiative, but it's still there today. And I'm chair emeritus there of the GRI. And so I came back to South Africa I was overseas a lot in Amsterdam and Geneva and London, and came back to South Africa and said, we have to, at our King Committee meeting, we have to do something about reporting on this 80% of value, which is not being reported on, because we're not discharging our duty to the company. If you're not reporting that, then stakeholders are making decisions on which they're not fully informed. And so we were the first governance body to issue the question of sustainability issues. And we adopted the guidelines of the GRI because it was the only sort of guidance in those days. There were no standards. And that became a JSE listing requirement as well. So we were the first in the world to actually deal with the question of sustainability. That was 94. The second code was in 2002. 2002. So extraordinary. Out of Africa, always something new. And today, of course, there are major institutions that have issued standards for sustainability reporting. But we actually came out of that. And in King 2, until we did King 3, we actually followed the GRI guidelines, which eventually became standards.
So if I think about major shifts in governance from those early days when King 1 was issued to the present day now that we're ready to release King 5, sustainability is clearly one of them. I don't think it was top of mind then, and certainly is very top of mind now. Are there one or two more of these shifts that you can think about that have changed the face of governance?
Yes, absolutely. Companies started thinking on an integrated basis because it was something quite absurd, and this was a discussion I had with members of IFAC, the International Federation of Accountants, that operationally natural assets, intellectual capital, financial capital, all these things will work together, operationally. And yet we're reporting in different silos. So eventually we were doing a financial report and we were doing a report following the GRI guidelines, which eventually became standard. And IFAC and other major bodies around the world agreed with me that to have this report in two silos was divorced from reality. But really it should be integrated, and the thinking should be integrated. And so King 3, we added this concepts of integrated thinking and integrated reporting. And that's what Adrian Cadbury came out to launch and said that we were the leaders in the world on governance.
So we all know the many hours, days, months, and years that you have invested into building the King reports into the globally recognized brand that it is today. Why did you do it, and was it all worth it for you?
I did it in the best interest of South Africa. And it was a matter, I was involved as a business leader at the time. I formed with leaders in the business world, like the chairman of Anglo-American Insurance Company and various others, a movement called the Consultative Business Movement. Because in the Nationalist Party, we had verrigters and verkrampters. In the ANC, you had thinkers who said we must negotiate with the verrigters. And those right-wingers who said, no, we're not talking to them. And so I had the idea, and I got business leaders to agree with me, that we should form this consultative business movement so we could actually convey from the verrigters what they were thinking to people in the ANC and back again, back to the verrigters. And Efto, the clerk who practiced as an attorney in Vereniging and used to brief me as an advocate, I knew him well. He was then Minister of Education. So I went to see him and tell him the idea, and he was a verligter. So he said to me, you know, Mervyn, I think it's a great idea. I said, well, I just want one favor from you. I said, one thing we are nervous of is the Bureau of State Security, the security police. So I said, we need to know, our backs have been covered. Will you make sure we get looked after? He said, I will, but if anybody asks me, I'll deny I ever said that to you. And that led to IoDSA. So, you know, when you think about all these things, it was something that drove me was the inequity of the apartheid policies, and that's why I chaired Operation Hunger. And I was fortunate to be the chairman of Metro Cash and Carry, Checkers. And so but the companies were one of the biggest buyers of food products. So I got food manufacturers to make a nutritional package that cost 45 cents. And we fed 1 million children a day for 27 years in the homelands where there was no infrastructure. You know. So when Mr. Mandela came out of jail, he had a luncheon for 12 people, and I was one of the 12, and he said, Judge King. He always called me Judge King. Judge King. If it wasn't for him, there'd be millions of useless people in society, because if you don't feed a child under 3, their brains atrophy, and they do become useless. So I was driven by all these things, Parmi, that we needed a code of governance that really was adequate for us here in South Africa. But it was those factors that were driving me to get the committee to work on things which were novel, like integrated thinking and doing an integrated report. And these became spread internationally. And the report and the work of the committee members, of course, not only me, but it became, as you said, a global standard of corporate governance.
So Mervyn, I think from our side, firstly, thank you for heeding that call that the then CEO of the IOD made to you when this committee was formed. Because I really think this has made such a difference in South Africa, but also globally, and putting us on the global stage. Thank you for serving this committee from 1992 through to 2018, and still now in this current day. I think you've really made a difference in putting South Africa on the stage as a global leader in governance, and we are eternally grateful.
Thank you.
I'm sure this is a proud milestone for you to see King 5 being launched soon. Yeah.
It is that it's proud for me that the King Committee and the IoDSA as the administration of the committee's work is that we've actually spread out to the world this outcomes-based approach to governance, and it's become more mindful and become more valuable, because we've got this value creation model now, which has replaced the primacy of the shareholder, which was right through the 20th century, resulted in increased profits but subsidized by society and the environment, which just couldn't continue because we wouldn't have a sustainable planet, or we wouldn't leave sustainable ability for sustainable development for those who come after us. So all these things were driving me, and I think we, the King Committee and the IoDSA, have had a big role in improving the quality of governance around the world, because they all now follow this outcomes-based approach. And King 5 is a simplification of what we thought in King 4. And we tried to, the King Committee, me as chair emeritus, putting my head in occasionally, but we actually changed the thinking of the world, and we've changed the thinking of boards around the world of limited liability companies, but not only that, of organizations generally. So it's been of great pride to me and great heartwarming for me. But I also realized by 2018, I'd been for 28 years the chairman, and I thought, well, I'm still alive. Well, I've lived a bit longer than that. I must see the change of chairmanship, and and I think that was my duty at the time. So under the chairmanship now of Ansi Ramalo and your administration, Parmi, I think King 5 is a work which will be, it has been simplified, and technical language has been removed. And I think that especially for the ultimate consumer company that might be listed on the London Stock Exchange, to have oversight of your suppliers in your supply chain. Let's say that one uses child labor, for example, and that's known. When that's known, then you lose 50% of your market cap on the stock exchange the next day in trading. So King 5 actually helps that ultimate consumer listed on the London Stock Exchange to simplify its oversight over its suppliers and how they're governing, because the way they govern backs on the ultimate consumer, the listed company. So this simplification is something which has a great importance. It actually helps the ultimate consumer's oversight, and you actually improve governance in that supply chain.
So thank you so much, Mervyn. I always take so much away from our discussions. Thank you for your time. It's really valuable.
Thank you. Thank you, Parmi.
And thank you to all of you for listening. I'm sure you've also really enjoyed this discussion, and look out for further episodes.